banning, what's it called, or suspending some exchanges and what have you. It's just a process. So the issue of challenges with P2Ps and what have you, I think that the model to adopt should be the stock market model also. License the exchanges and let the P2Ps, like you have NGX, NASD, and FMDQ, and the P2Ps will now be like stockbrokers under the exchanges, and that way you can regulate them. That way it becomes more transparent to see things that are happening in that space. But it's an emerging space, and there's a lot to be done. So you see that even our regulators are well positioned for this interplay. It's how the interoperability amongst the regulators work that's going to define how this happen. So why is payment important? We need to pay for services and for goods. So in the prayer of paying for services and goods, how do I ensure that, or we ensure that I'm trying to pay for bread, and the process of that transaction, somebody hijacks that money? That means I can't eat bread. So payment's twin brother is fraud. And what exactly is fraud? It's as simple as taking what does not belong to you, either by cyber means or looting of public funds. That's fraud. So in terms of, we need to really look at cybersecurity, build on it, ensure that we have vigilance, there's commitment to safeguarding people's deposits and financial assets that are entrusted to them, because it's going to cut across all these 4 areas that we had mentioned. People steal bitcoins. So it says that statistics say that cybercrime will cost $20 trillion by 2026. That's a huge figure. And what do we expect in Nigeria? About $500 million in cybercrime. That's 750 billion naira in today's, if you use today's exchange rate. So we need to fortify our defenses against cyber threats and constantly involve. So can we really eliminate fraud? The answer is no. Because the guys on that side, they're also evolving every day. So why is there fraud? Greed. People are greedy. They want more money. They want to be better than their neighbors. Don't care how. There are socioeconomic issues. So there was this, the EFCC chairman was on TV talking about this second 200 level chap that was arrested for cybercrime. I said, okay, my parents are poor. I support my parents as I train myself and my siblings. So I need to find a way of doing it. That's it's not an excuse, but that's his reason. So socioeconomic issues are reasons people also do fraud. Leadership failures and accountability. Whether we like it or not, that's a problem we're dealing with in our country today. So people, look, so if this person can get away with it, they are doing it at the top, so why can't I do it why can I do it here, So, and that's the big challenge. The next one is lack of strong institutions. If people, so a banker was jailed a few weeks ago for 120 years for a fraud in his bank. But there are people who are also been accused of stealing 22 billion, 90 billion, who are still walking around the streets. So lack of strong institutions is things that make people to do fraud. So if I can pay my way out, I can get away, I can get with it. So there's that mentality. And of course, there are congenital issues also. Some people are just congenitally thieves. They just think about stealing, and committing fraud. And then, but can AI really help to solve this problem? It would. Because with AI, we're able to analyze vast amounts of data. We're able to be able to use that in real time to be able to detect things. So I remember being in the US, and I wanted to book Uber. And I haven't gone since COVID, so I've been away for like 2 years. And the moment I used my card on the Uber app, my bank blocked the transaction and sent me a text immediately. Are you the one using your card for Uber? And I said yes, and I responded yes, and they released the card immediately. So that's AI. So being able to track things real time, will help. So if I've been doing transactions on a daily during the day, and all of a sudden there's a transaction at 1 a.m., that's a trigger because it's not in a normal, what's it called, practice, my normal practice. So banks should be able to, we need to have AI embedded in us so that we can trigger such things. All my transactions have always been in Lagos, and all of a sudden I'm doing a transaction in Kano, there should be a trigger. But the trigger is not to block me, but the trigger is to be able to confirm that are you the one doing the transaction. So if we can identify unusual patterns, it will also help with dealing with these things. So are there benefits to AI? Of course, real-time swift action, performance improves with increased data. As data improves, AI trains itself to be able to be more efficient. Of course, and it saves us money and time. So, but does AI also have challenges? Yes. There are privacy concerns. There are workforce impact. Skills is a big challenge that we have here. In 2021, together with EY, FinTech Association did a study on FinTech census in Nigeria. And what came across everywhere, and we have 23 sectors in our association. So what came across everywhere was skills, skills, skills. This was 2021. So you can imagine 2023 with JAPA, it's a big challenge that we need to deal with. And there are regulatory challenges. Innovation is always ahead of regulation. So that's a huge challenge that needs to be, that we need to bridge that gap. And you can see the Minister for Communications and Digital has been very active trying to put a team together to look at AI regulation in Nigeria. And it's not a peculiar problem to Nigeria. It's a global challenge in terms of regulation for artificial intelligence. So payment is fundamental to our everyday life. However, nobody pays for payments. Nobody wakes up in the morning, today, I want to pay Flutterwave, or I want to pay Money Point, or Cora. You are paying for what? For food, for shelter, for transport, and so if in the process of doing that, there's fraud, you are not able to enjoy those things that you need to really pay for. And that's why it's important that we have cyber security as a major issue to be able to ensure that we can reduce the impact of cybercrime. Like I said, we can't eliminate it, but we can reduce the impact by using technology. And AI is a tool that can be used to be able to reduce that. Also, we need to have collaboration between players in the financial sector. So there's a fraud in Bank A, and Bank A calls FinTech B and says, look, the money was moved from our bank to your FinTech. Can you hold the money? And they say, we have to investigate. While they're investigating, this money has moved to a gaming company or has moved into cryptocurrencies and becomes a problem. So there has to be that collaboration in the industry where when there's a flag, we can all act in the interest of everybody. NIPS is doing something about that. The FinTech Association is also putting up something, and we can integrate all together that we'll be able to mitigate. And it's the same sort of people that do this fraud, really. It's because we don't have a blacklist for them. Once we can create a blacklist for them and we can block them off, we can catch them. So we need to work together as a team to be able to do that. Of course, we need to strengthen our institutions. So the penalty for fraud, what should it be? It should be stiff to deter people from doing it. So a friend of mine lost money, says that they should make it death penalty, if you catch it, like to prevent people from committing fraud. So it's a major thing that we need to deal with, and that's the challenge we have. So my role here is to set the tone for the panelists. The panelists are the experts. I'm not the experts, and they will be able to want to put more context into today's topic. So I wish you all the best in your deliberations and a good conference. Thank you very much.
Did we find that keynote address insightful? If we did, please let's give him, our esteemed speaker, once again a round of applause. Thank you. So now we are going straight to our next segment, which is our panel session, and we'll be talking about examining current and future trends in AI and financial fraud. And I'll be welcoming the moderator for this session. His name is Mr. Temitayo Jayola. He's the head of the Tech and Media Desk, Business Day. He will come up stage and then he would welcome our panelists. Mr. Temitayo Jayola, please. Thank you.
Hi, hello. Sorry. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Okay, it's a cold morning actually, so I'll say warm greetings to you all. Warm greetings to you all. For the first panel, um, I think I'll just put this disclaimer first before I continue. I'm going to be murdering the names here, so please excuse me. God, there's no Yoruba name here. Okay, there's no Yoruba name here. I will not murder that one. But I'll start with the women. Miss Susan Fasikpe. Fasikpe. Is it Fasikpe or Fasikpe? Fashikpe. She's the head retail into Switch Group. Please let's give her a round of applause so she climbs up. Welcome. Mr. Odun, oh God, Odamola Adeyonju. Is he around? Oh, he's not around yet. Okay, I'll go to the other lady here, Miss. God, it is hard. It is hard, but I'll try pronouncing the surname. Poapo. Is it Poapo? Yeah, sorry. I got it wrong. I'm sure I got it wrong. But she's a digital security professional with Resilience Technologies. Please let's give her a round of applause. Please clap for her. I mean, I murdered her name. Please, that's the consolation. Clap for her. Then, last but not the least, Mr. Enyoma Madukwe. Yeah, okay. Sorry, did I get it right? At all? Oh, okay. So he's the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer for Coral. Please let's give him a round of applause. Please let's give him a round of applause. I know it's a cold morning, but we can warm up the room. Please. Yes, so, hi. Hi, everyone. Sincere apologies for murdering your name first. I'll give you a chance to pronounce your name properly so that the audience will not call you by how I called you, yeah? So, we'll start with you.
My name is Susan Fashikwe. Fashikwe.
Oh, is the Ami is
H
missing.
is silent.
The Ami is missing.
Yeah, it's missing.
Yeah, Fashikwe. Yeah, to you.
My name is Namban Poaspo.
I would not have gotten it, don't worry. At all.
My name is Inyo Madubike. Don't worry, I get that murdered a lot. It's fine.
Inyoma.
Yes, Inyoma, yes.
Inyoma. So please let's give them a round of applause once again. My name is Temitayo Jayola. They didn't murder my name. Thank God for that. So they didn't murder my name. And yeah. On this panel, we want to explore and examine, the current and future trends in AI and financial fraud. I like standing. It's interesting. Yeah. But I'll start this panel with a story. In 2017, I got a call. I got a very random call. This person tells me, hello, hi. I didn't ask for the person's name, interestingly. And the person's like, I'm from your mom. And I'm like, yes. Your mom sent you 2 iPhones and 1 laptop. And interesting, at that point, my phone was bad. So when I heard iPhone and laptops, I did not think again. I was like, God, iPhone. It's like, we are in Nigeria and we want to bring it to you. And I'm like, yes. So he asked me for his name. I'm like, why are you asking me for your name? But I played along. I sent him 1,000 naira. First time he asked me for money, I sent him 1,000 naira. Then I didn't send him money again. But he kept calling me for a long time. And interesting thing is, I think almost everybody here has got a call like that. Am I right? Almost everybody has gotten a call from a random person that says they're your grandmother's sister and they have something for you, and then they want you to send them money so that you can claim your package. Social engineering. It's a big factor in fraud today. And according to the NIBSS, it's still one of the largest ways that people lose money today in Nigeria. Do you have any, you guys are experts here. Do you have any personal story, from maybe somebody related your business, not personal relations, that has lost a huge sum of money due to social engineering? I think I'll throw the first question to you.
Yeah, personal story. I think probably recently, right? I think my husband's phone was hacked, WhatsApp was hacked, and as usual, whoever acted sent a message saying, I'm currently not available. I cannot access my mobile app. Please transfer money to XYZ. The beauty of that, the interesting part was the fact that I realized that he had personal greetings for everybody on his phone. The only people that fell probably did not take notice of the fact that he probably didn't call them one pet name or the other that he traditionally would have called them. And before we knew it, the person called, oh, your husband said I should transfer money to you. And before you know, 200K is gone, 300K is gone, and those kind of things. It's very hard to track that type of fraud because of the fact that you personally, like you took your phone, you logged in, and you transferred without necessarily trying to do a further confirmation of if the person you're chatting with is who they are. But interestingly, if you then begin to look at it from the entire fraud perspective, if you compare 2022 versus 2023, social engineering is not growing as much as it used to, like when they started in 2022, where you literally had 1 or 2% that was compromised, and that's because the financial institutions got more intentional in educating the people. So yes, one way or the other, we've experienced it.
So education is a major one.
Exactly.
So before I go to the next question, last year, every single day last year, over 200 fraud was executed every single day in Nigeria. It brought the total to about 95,000 fraud counts, and say 80,000 new customers, bank customers, were impacted. What constitutes a fraud? I know the keynote speaker explained and says, oh, take money that is not your own. But then sometimes, I take my dad's money sometimes, and it's my money. My dad's money is my money. But so what constitutes a fraud?
So when it comes to fraud, the intent is always something to note. The intent of the person taking the money from you. Sometimes when we talk about different types of cyber criminals, we have people that are after financial gain. We have hacktivists that are trying to stand for something. They don't necessarily need money or anything, but they are just disrupting your systems or taking things from you for a stance, to make a name, to make a statement. We have script kiddies that are just playing around. They're just trying different tools and they're like, let's see what works. And we have APTs, which are advanced persistence threats. So these are mostly state-sponsored when it comes to, say, Iran, Russia. Let me just add Nigeria inside, but something like that. So intent is one big thing to consider when you're talking about these kind of things.
How prevalent to you, sir? I won't call your name, so I don't want it again. Yeah, so it's fine. So how prevalent would you say, or how effective would you say traditional means of fraud detection has been today?
So I'm in the payment space. So it's almost, I'm not sure that traditional means of stopping fraud are amenable to the space that I play in, right? Because if you are in the business of ensuring payments across online, you have to have systems that are in tune with those steps. So typically, your traditional means would be, say, which still exists to be fair, would be the police, or in Nigeria, to be fair, in Nigeria you have self-help, which is a very popular means of because of our inherent distrust of our institutions. As technology has advanced, most of these means of preventing or even recovering processes of fraud have become less and less effective. Of course, because of speed, because of distance. Sometimes whoever has hacked you is not very close to you. So increasingly, we find that most of these traditional means are becoming very obsolete. And obsolete, to be fair, a lot can be done with those traditional means if we can assist them, right? Those means to step up to the game, right, as we advance with payments. So yes, the way we used to catch fraud in the past can no longer work, and hopefully those traditional means can adapt to the new threats of fraud. Yeah.
What are these new threats? I mean, you want to say something? What are these new threats?
Okay, fine. So when you begin to look at the new threats from the fact that traditional means today, as I said, are more rule-based processing that you currently set on your system, saying if my customer does transaction this way because I have seen this pattern, do this, right? But this new, because payment is evolving and the trends are changing, there are more threats that you probably even didn't plan for it. Things like social engineering, for example, right? It doesn't matter the traditional means in terms of rules you set, right? Because of the fact that the very authentication mode or means that you would ordinarily validate a customer with, right, has been compromised by the customer itself, is literally very hard for you to get them. So you probably need something that can do more of behavioral analytics, that can look at the behavior of a customer, like the fintech chairman said, that can then say, you know what, off of that behavioral pattern, this guy would not do this, let me block those transactions. Other of the such threats are that AI is also bringing the fact that today, if you want to do fraud, it will literally take a fraudster ordinarily to sit down, compose a mail, or sit down to do one or two things, and then he can't probably do a blast. But today, with AI, they can sit down and attack 1 million people, and it's a game of number. I sit down, I send SMS of fraud into a system 1 million times. You cannot use the traditional way that you currently do, rule-based, to be able to. So you're beginning to look at deepfakes, again, is another point, whereby you're looking at Susan, because you've seen Susan talk, you can literally assume you're talking to Susan, right? So it simply means that you also begin to look at what are the tools that you need to be able to see that Susan is not just this Susan that is talking, that is the real Susan that is talking to you. Those are the emerging traits, trends to begin to see today within our market, that you cannot just use the usual traditional rule-based processing method or manual review to be able to treat.
I mean, now that you mentioned deepfakes, I mean, I just remember the story. I don't know if everybody knows this story of someone from Hong Kong, a financial officer from Hong Kong, that had a call. He had a video call with the I think the London office or the US office, and they asked him to transfer 25 million US dollars, and he had transferred the 25 million US dollars before they realized that that meeting never happened. Imagine we're having this meeting here, and then tomorrow I wake you up and I tell you that this never happened. Like, it was all just in your mind. How would you feel? I mean, those are the realities, the new realities. And I will come to you now. How will AI, I mean, AI is the new thing, is the new child. Let's say it's a new child. Everybody loves this child. Everybody wants this child. But then there's also a side of this child that isn't always so nice. How will AI scale fraud?
AI, on the conversation of AI, when it comes to scaling fraud, it's like a cat and rat chase. So it doesn't just come without a price. When ChatGPT first came out, it was kind of limitless. You could do anything with it. You could ask it any questions. It would give you any solutions. It would build codes for you. It would do your assignments for you. But today, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, hi, can you give me the code to break a certain system? It tells you, I am sorry, I cannot do that. It is illegal. Because at a point in time, they had to look at regulating it. They had to look at putting in some kind of placement to ensure that there's a limit to what it can do, so it can be ethical. So with AI, it boils down to regulation generally. If in the payment space we're trying to infuse and harness AI technologies, like I said, it's a cat and rat chase. The better we get, the more insightful the attackers get as well. They don't sleep. Before the invent of computers and all these other things, there were thieves on the road, there were burglars, there were people coming to shops to steal. And even with banks, there were people breaking into banks. And now that everything has gone online, they're still following us online. So even with AI, I think it boils down to, first of all, harnessing it in a regulative way, and secondly, using it ethically, and lastly, I would say that it is very important for these financial organizations to also have the right skill sets. So most of the time when we're thinking of building these kind of systems, do we have the right infrastructure and do we have the right skill set? Because if you look at where we are in Nigeria, AI is only recent, is only very recent. The knowledge and the training and skill set on AI is recent. How much do we have? Do we make decisions based on, say, who is on top, or the kind of beer parlor conversations they have, or what they hear from their children? Or do we make decisions based on this person has the expertise? At the end of the day, we have to import skill sets to help us out with these developments.
Oh, okay. So before I go to the next question, interestingly, the only person I got his name correctly is around. Mr. Damilola Adeyoju. Mr. Damilola Adeyoju. Oh, I got your name correctly. You people should give me a round of applause for that, please. I didn't murder his name. Mr. Dami, welcome. We've been waiting for you. Like, as God will have it. I will even let you, I won't let you catch a break at all. When the fintech chairman was speaking, he said something around skill sets. You also mentioned skill sets. Skill is a big issue. Yes, you have this tech, but then you even have the people that can handle this tech. How important, and aside from even how important, what's the gap? What's the skill set gap in the fraud financial payment space today? And also, how important is closing that gap?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Let me apologize for coming late. Like you have said, there's this skill gap, especially when it comes to some of these recent technologies like artificial intelligence and all of that. It is very important. I think we in FinTech Nigeria, we did a survey with in 2020 around the fintechs and some of that, a fintech census report, and then we noticed that as much as there's this news here and there of no jobs and all of that, we saw that there is still a skill gap, especially in the tech and fintech ecosystem. And it is very important because that was in 2020. Now, looking after that 2020, we saw a lot of migration, JAPA, and all of that. So it shows that the skill gap, is still widening the more, and it is critical because now we are having new technologies that we are adopting and we want to implement in our systems. So if we don't close that skill gap, we are going to be having issues. There will be loopholes here and there. So it is very, very important that we now start training. We need to now start training and even exposing we need to expose our tech people, to the marketplace. You need to make them have that experience of the marketplace, and then be able to catch up, with the recent trends, so that that's how we can. And then also, I think we need to also catch them young from, the final year in school and all of that. Projects should be directed to solve real-life cases and situations, so that when they come out, they are able to, have that experience. They can start building that experience, because majority of the people that we used to have that experience might have migrated, out of the country. But then, if we're able to catch them young, expose them to solving real-life cases and all of that, that can help us to, bridge that talent gap we're having.
Okay. But then, now I'm going to come to Mr. Enyoma. But then, you have this, you train these people, you equip them, they have the talent, they have the skills, they are here for 6 months, then somebody calls them from the UK, will you like to cross? And then they cross, and then you're back to the beginning again. How do you build sustainability around skills, especially with high demand skills. I mean, there's no how. I think the reality is we cannot change these skills down. So how do you then build sustainability around high demand skills in such a way that it doesn't hurt the business? Because last year, one of the conversations around that happened a lot last year was banks kept coming out and they were like, see, we are trying, but the people that are handling all these our apps, they are leaving. But we are trying. We employ them today. By next month, they've left. So what do we do? So how do we build sustainability around that?
I think you've answered in the question. You've answered that question. You've answered your question. The answer to that is there's a fundamental problem of. I think we can all attest to the fundamental problem of creating a. All right. Creating a steady stream of talent into this particular sector. And that is, unfortunately, I think Nigerian experience has shown that, unfortunately, that is something that government has to take on. We have seen private outfits try to do it. We've seen certain edtech platforms try to take on the role of, creating these skills. We see that this is not sustainable as far as meeting the demand is concerned. And it is clear, as far as the experiment is concerned, it is now clear that government has to step in a big way to create a steady stream of talent for these spaces. And this is to create the foundational knowledge needed for these spaces. And when I talk foundational knowledge, you mentioned it, math skills, and all that entails that. As a lawyer, I can't really speak to that. And it's on that foundation that you can now build on-the-job expertise, which you have to do with now working on these systems, learning with these platforms, developing rules, creating algorithms. There's this joke internally that we have for fintech business. There's usually this enthusiasm with young, people, right, wants to build a business. Typically, what happens when a fintech founder approaches me, talks about maybe they want to integrate on our platform, they want to build out a platform. One of the first questions we ask them is that how much have you lost, right? And it's a very important question because for me, if you haven't had a huge loss event in fintech, you haven't really started the business, right? You haven't encountered what it really is, right? To hold people's money, to be responsible for people's money, and to lose money that is not yours, right? Which is fundamentally what happens when you are a fintech platform, and you lose money. It is, and there's an educational part of it, of that experience that we often overlook, right? Is that there is education that needs to be done with people that are looking to start businesses. There's education that needs to be done with government. There's education that needs to be done with policymakers. Recently, there's this rule around structuring, right? I'm sure a lot of banks have this rule where I think NIBs and all that, where you basically try to flag transactions that are similar, right? Maybe because you are trying to avoid a certain threshold. Right, fraudsters will do, maybe the threshold is 100,000. They'll do 99,000 like 5-6 times. Now, certain rules, certain platforms have developed rules to kind of catch these activities, right? Now, recently, we're having an internal discourse around this, and I asked one of my teammates to instruct ChatGPT to create a rule that is able to avoid those flags. And right there, it didn't take about up to 10 minutes, right, for ChatGPT to create an instruction. Say you have 100 million to move, right? That was instruction. You have 100 million to move. How are you able to create an instruction that transfers this amount, right, within 10 minutes, avoiding structuring flags? And in that minute, right, ChatGPT was able to create an instruction, right, which you can feed into an automated system that helps you move money that avoids the rules that are already in place. Now, this is the level of this is ChatGPT, by the way. ChatGPT is the open web. Now we have tools that are available in what we call the dark web, which by far have more sinister applicability. Now that is the level of education that you have to be, right? That you are on if you are a financial institution and you're trying to chase down fraudsters, you know. And fintech companies pride in our ability to, in being smart. We think that we are smarter in general sense than governments because, innovation, is faster than governments. The truth is fraudsters are smarter than we are, right? And that is something that we are constantly chasing. Those boys, right? We call them the boys, right? We are constantly chasing, constantly learning. So that is the level of education across board that we need to have and we need to consciously think about when we're talking of AI and fraud.
Sorry, moderator, can I ask something?
Okay, sure.
Yes, in addition to what you have said, I think another thing that we need to look at now is that we may not be able to really, really curtail how talents move. So I think the fintechs and all those who employ that kind of technology need to now look at talent as global. So is it possible that you have a system where a staff can decide not to live in the country and still remain a staff? So I think we still struggle with that kind of system. We are still trying to adjust, but I think it's something that we need to critically look at so that when we start seeing talent as global and not local, that way we can have people migrate and then we are still able to sustain and still have their talents with us rather than just allow them go once they leave the country and then that's all. So that's another way to look at it.
Thank you very much. And so I'll go to Susan, and I'll pick something from what you said, and then also something from what I was going to ask around also. And it's something you said around AI, around how, today, if I needed to carry out a fraud, I probably don't even need to be so smart. All I just need to go and do is know how to use maybe like an AI tool, and I feed it the information, and it tells me what to do, and I probably find my way around that. And AI is good. The general consensus is that AI is going to scale our lives better, make us better. It's the next best thing since sliced bread. So definitely AI is good. But then how are fintechs now? Now you have this good thing that can also be bad. So how are fintechs now thinking about AI in terms of fraud? And also, how are fintechs trying to leverage AI with fraud detection and also fraud curbing, with curbing fraud? As the fintech chairman said, we might not be able to stop fraud ever, but at least we can reduce it and minimize it.
Yeah, so far so good. When we're talking about fintech education, right? The education in terms of how do you keep this pool of talent. I think one of the things, I'll go to your question, one of the things I think for my institution we've done so well is to try and have this pool of talents that you train such that they are there and such that by the time it's called a job shadow. This talent that just shadowing everybody on their jobs. So that if tomorrow you pick your back and jackpot, that guy that has been shadowing you all the while just takes over. That's one thing. And in terms of how we're trying to combat fraud, right? One of the things is the fact that fraud tools you currently have today within the markets today currently has the machine learning capability and behavioral analytics. So in other words, in as much as we're talking about you want to go and learn the AI as AI, right? You already have solutions today that already have that embedded. So you're not going to start learning the infrastructure bit of AI. You're not going to start learning all the various prompts and the likes. All you just need to do is once you implement those fraud solutions and you set up all your various rules and you then feed it with the right data sets, which is one of the major challenge. You feed it with the right data. It does all the machine learning where it's looking at fraud from how has this transaction played out in time past. And then you then go futuristic to then predict the the type of fraud that is likely to occur, and then putting mitigants to be able to be mitigate against it. It also does behavioral monitoring, where it looks at your pattern of transactions, right? And then immediately you are deviating from your usual transaction pattern. It automatically flags those type of transaction all the way for you. So you don't necessarily have to go to one AI education, because you now have a solution that already has it embedded. And with that, you currently have lots of banks today within our markets embracing such fraud solutions. And beyond that, again, if you then look at the fraud pattern you have, you find out again, they're not more of the technology parts, which is one of the things I keep saying. If you look at the fraud report for 2023, 86% of those fraud were human related. Human, from the fact that they were social engineering, they were armed robbery, they were card theft. Right? In other words, they are not even coming from the technology bit to a certain degree, and that's because to most of the banks, again, within the space, already are beginning to start implementing these tools. They have these tools that today, from the technology perspective, they can easily prompt or block some of these transactions, right? So today, in our market, you find out that this adoption is already helping us. We are not there yet, right? But again, compared to where we're coming from, where fraud used to be like 1-2% of transaction volume, now we have fraud reporting as less than 0.001%. So we are not there yet. It can't be totally eradicated. But I hope that as more banks begin to adopt these tools and fintechs, we would be able to call it almost a thing of the past, basically.
Okay. I mean, we've been talking about fraud since, and I mean, it feels like we need to ask this question. I will come to you now. Who has the burden of proof? I mean, when a fraud occurs, who needs to prove that it was a fraud? And I just want to give context here. The new Cybersecurity Act, the one that we still have an issue around implementing, there's a portion of that act that says something around, well, if there's a fraud, now the customer needs to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they were not involved. So today, who has that burden of proof?
I mean, okay, I want to say we're in Nigeria, so there's little or very, very little knowledge that the customer has when it comes to this thing, depending on which customer it is. Some people are being defrauded and they don't even go to the bank. They don't even report it because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the awareness of what they can do and what the bank can do for them as well. But as the Act has said, the customer has to prove, but the burden still falls on the institution because you are the data controller, you are holding the funds and you're supposed to be in charge of it. So if it was taken and it wasn't taken by the customer, you have to be able to trace how it went. I've seen many cases of people being easily defrauded, like the whole skimming attacks where you use your ATM card to pay for something, there's a card reader that takes your details, and before you know it, 2K, 10K, 100K is gone from your account. And as you can see, like the customer has no hand in it. But in the debit alert, you would see that, oh, it was a POS operator. And naturally, I mean, you would assume that it was the customer that did it. Now, I know two people that have actually reported this case to CBN, sent an email, CC'd the bank, and after some time, personally, like my someone close to me did that. After some time, she was refunded. In fact, the caption of the payment was cyber crime or something, but CBN refunded her bank refunded her the money after they did the investigation. I also know so many people that have been defrauded that way, but never got their money back. They went to the bank so many times, they're like, oh, we'll investigate, do police reports, do this, do that, and at the end of the day, they didn't get their money back. But this just goes as far as to say, what is the institution doing? How far can they go for their customers? What can they provide for them? And also, for the customers, there needs to be more awareness and information out there. There needs to be more education and awareness. I know that fintechs these days are doing a great job with awareness, even as it pertains to like staying safe online. They're sending messages. They're telling you, don't do this, don't do that. There are prompts, there are alerts. But there also needs to be more about what you can do if these things happen. So it's not just avoidance. When it happens, how can we curb it?
Mr. Enyoma, okay. the question around collaboration, because I mean, for fraud to happen, for successful fraud to happen, it has to move through. Actually, it has to move across different channels. I mean, I need to be able to transfer the money from my account. No, sorry, okay, I don't want to use my account because I'm a Yoruba person. We don't personalize this kind of things here. So the person that is being attacked needs to, they need to move that money from that account to another account, then maybe to another account. But usually you find out that even when the customer notices that, oh, somebody is moving my money, and they quickly call their bank that, I noticed that it's not me that authorized it to, please, emark for me now. There's always that problem with the other institution, telling the other institution, please help us hold this money. Our customer just complained. Please, can you just help us hold it until we confirm these transactions? How can we get better with that? Because if we don't get better, I mean...
Yeah, this question is quite related to the last question you asked, because this is a big problem, and it's a difference between taking the legalistic approach, right? Because the reason why you have banks not restrict accounts is because they are saying you need to bring me a court order, right? Because the court order for them is evidence that this is a proceed of fraud, and that's the only thing that would protect me from the risk that I face from maybe my customer coming back at me and saying, why did you block my account? Right? I think there is an attitude change that I think we need to have as far as fraud is concerned, and this is something that we can borrow from other clients, right? For example, maybe in the UK and the US. What the general attitude of the financial system in those places is that the customer is a victim, right? So the institution takes the attitude of this is a victim. So for example, the very popular romance frauds, right? We know about where women maybe in say US are being defrauded by one prince somewhere in Africa, claim they're from Africa. The way they approach it is to say, hey, if we see a strange transaction moving in this direction from this particular kind of account, we would take the proactive step, right, of calling this person and say, hello, ma, who are you sending the money to? Are you sure? Is this fine? Are you sure? Who is this person, right? And that shows a difference in attitude and perspectives, that you have taken the attitude of saying, we want to protect the victim, rather than making the victim come to you and now have to prove, right, that they have been victims of fraud. That's a fundamental change that needs to happen, especially with online fraud, right? With the way our institutions deal with this. And as a fintech, we currently have an issue like that currently, where we are basically begging the bank to say, give us information, let us know where has there been transfers from this. We know money came here. Block it first. Let us know if money has gone to other accounts so that we can chase after those monies. We get give us give us court order. We don't want to, police order is not enough. Give us court order in next 3 days, right? So a change, I believe, a change in attitude in the way we view these activities would help prevent fraud, and also reduce the incidences of these fraud activities.
Okay. Does anyone want to add something to that? Okay.
I'm looking at it I'm trying to look at from the other perspective, right? Is that conversation where you say that I really want to help, but I'm contained by regulations to this extent that I want to give you information, but you can sue me tomorrow to say that I gave out your information in an unauthorized way. So I think this is the point where you begin to look at, are there things regulation can do? Looking at this current pattern where if I transfer money to fintech A, it gets to fintech B, where the first status quo is, can you just hold all the fund in the account? And the bank or the financial institution knows that if I hold this fund in this account, because I am backed by regulation to hold it almost immediately or to do something immediately, pending when there is investigation, I am covered, then it's a whole lot easier to have this conversation. But where there is still that gray areas between I release and I'm at detriment of releasing data, or I block your phone and you can sue me that your mother almost died, and because I held your phone, you almost died. It's the case of where it's still very gray. There needs to be a clear-cut action to say, if X, Y, Z happen, knowing that this pattern exists, this and this is what you should do. If it takes you to hold the phone, even if it's just for 10 minutes before it goes to the next place, I think that would really help both the financial institution to also help safeguard the customer. Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask this question around, I mean, you said something around regulation now. I'll probably pen that one if we have time. But then there's one particular question I need to ask. It's around transparency when it comes to fraud reporting, especially from fintechs and banks and, I mean, everybody that has to do with money. There's usually this fear of being transparent. I mean, we have a running story of a major fintech, sorry, I cannot name names, of a major fintech that probably just lost money, and that fintech came out to say, oh, no, we didn't lose money. But then it has happened before, and the money was confirmed that it was lost. So what's the issue? Why is there, will somebody beat fintechs if they say the truth? Like, I need to know. We need to know. I think everybody wants to know.
I don't think it is, right? I think it's that point where we begin to see fraud as a stigma, right? And the way we are positioned in this part of the world, where if I say that, something happened to me, right? And then you become the victim of that thing that has happened to you. People then begin to look at you like, if you agree that means I'm not safe with you, and what does that do for you? You see it more as a reputational, you see it as a dent to your brand, you see it as to everything that you worked for, and before you know, people they don't even ask questions. Nigerians, ordinary they said don't open new accounts. People read it in different ways, though. They did not hear the CBN said, don't open your accounts. They heard the bank is gone. That's what they heard, right? So in that case, you find out that they're kind of very mindful, right, to say, sorry, I've worked 5 years, don't label. But another thing is the fact that CBN also said you have to report it one way or the other, because it's only in reporting that you can safeguard your ecosystem. If you even look at the fraud journal report that came out, NIMS said only 35% of the fraud that happened was reported. In other words, 65% went under the drain, right? But if we begin to look at it from the fintech or financial institution perspective, that if I report this fraud, it's and then there is a, let's say, an infrastructure that when I report this fraud, it can also spread this whatever fraud that is currently happening to other institutions to avoid it. Then it can then begin to see that collaboratively we can all stop the magnitude of the fraud or the amount that would lose in fraud, because once I report, I just help 500 more financial institutions not to fall victim. So again, if you look at it again holistically, we're now looking at it from both ways to say, I want to report, but how do I protect my brand? Is there a way I can report without necessarily mentioning that a fintech happened, looking at the very interesting climb that we're in?
Thank you. So just to contribute to what she said, reporting is a key factor even in cybersecurity when it comes to governance, risk, and compliance. If there's any breach that has occurred, it is required that you report. I mean, EU has laws, GDPR, all these other things. You have to be able to report to the users or the subjects in, say, 24, 48 hours about what has happened and what they can do. And as much as there's a stigma that comes with it, it also saves a lot more people from being defrauded in the long run. We're talking about building intelligence systems now that will help scale these things. And in a country like Nigeria, where everybody is trying to hoard information for their own safety, it's going to be harder for us to get to where we want to be if we continue in this direction. When it comes to building intelligence systems now, like AI, we have machine learning models already, and you have to feed these models with data, and the data we're feeding it is the data we already have. Now, if this Fintech A is trying to build an AI system, Fintech B, Fintech C, everybody is trying to jump on the AI train. The kind of data they use is only specific to who their customers are and the kind of operations that they have. Now, if there was, say, a community discourse, and if there was collaboration amongst all these organizations, we would have data out there that we can take and feed into these systems in such a way that these systems can work in a generalistic way, so in a comprehensive way. It is not specific to this fintech, it is not specific to these particular organizations. So yeah, transparency works very well to help scale, how effective AI would be in the fintech industry.
I think I can make the argument for fintechs and say that this is not just a problem of fintechs. I can confidently say that this is not just a fintech problem. And the reason why is that there is an incentive issue. It's like, okay, I should report, but there's a reputational problem. I'm a financial institution. What I'm selling is safety, right? Stability. If there is news out there that I am not safe, it basically erodes the value that I'm pushing out there. So there is that, and because there's this decision that needs to be made, there there's a compliance end of that, then there's the management end of that, right? So that there has to be a way to align these incentives, right? And one of the ways the Cybercrimes Act does is to say that if you don't report within a particular amount of time, you'll be punished. Well, I don't know how effective that has been with encouraging players in the financial space to actually report. But I know that there are initiatives among fintech groups to actually find a way to share information in a way that doesn't get out there, right? In a way, right? So that you can encourage sharing of this information to prevent recurrence, because it's usually a small group of people, and if you're able to prevent people from accessing other fintechs, it would be good for the entire system. So I think this is not just a problem of fintechs; it's an incentive problem, and I can't sit here and say that I have a solution to solving that incentive problem, and that's just my take on that.
Okay, I think the association is here.
Okay, I think I agree with what he just said, and then looking at it too, I think that the major reporting should be done to, in a way, catch the problem happening again in the future, and not just to announce to, because for example, this particular fintech, suffers a particular kind of fraud, and then you just announce to the populace. That information is not actually important, because everybody is just scared and all of that. But then if you have a system where it is reported for data's sake, and then it can be traced and used within the fintech ecosystem, I think it is more useful that way than just announcing to the populace that, oh, this person is facing this kind of issue, and then nobody is thinking, because at the end of the day, they still have to find a way to solve their own problem. But then if they have that let me say, system or infrastructure where they can report to, and then solution, or they can even get support from the ecosystem that, okay, let's do it this way, and then that problem is solved. So yes, they are reporting, but then they are they feel that, okay, we are reporting and we are getting something, we are even getting support for reporting, not that we are now reporting and then it's going to be declared and then everybody is scared and we are losing customers, or So I think that is the way we address it. So I think it needs to be addressed in such a way that those people facing that kind of issue can be supported, and not that it's going to be detrimental to their own business.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, I think we're almost like at the end. Probably we can take one question from the public. Sorry, from the crowd. Sorry, I didn't mean public. I mean crowd. Okay. Sorry, can we just get a mic to him? Sorry, to him. Yeah, sorry, to him. Yeah, sorry. In case if he doesn't drag it, we'll come back to you. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ibuka. I'm a radio presenter with Jordan FM. I want to ask a question to Mr. Dami Lola and Mrs. Susan. There's a statement the both of you made. So I'm asking, how do you spread the word? Because Mr. Damilola, you said talents are going out of the country. We should have a way we retain them, so it will not be as if they have gone. Okay, so when they go, they are still here. Mrs. Susan said her company has someone that shadows. So it seems what you said now, how do we spread it? Is there a way it can go on Twitter? Is there a way it can go on LinkedIn or Instagram or appear on the headline of Business Day? Because people are not aware. That's maybe, I don't know if I'm wrong, but some people don't know what you are saying, the way you are saying it, or I don't know, but that's just what I'm asking. How do we spread the word so that every other organization will know what you are saying here? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just before Mr. Damilola answers the question, please, we're not taking any more questions because of time, so thank you.
Okay. I think that is what we are doing here now. You are quoting me because you just heard me say that. Yeah. So it's one of the things that I think the media ecosystem should help us do. And thank God for Business Day. You know, bringing together this kind of conference where we are able to discuss this kind of issues. So I think that is one way that we can get it out there. And then I think also, like we have said, collaboration, sharing data, and all of those things. Organizations now need to have a way of, and that's one of the things that we do at FinTech NGL too, in the association. You know, we are able to share that kind of knowledge within the ecosystem that, okay, if you are having talent issue, this is how this organization was able to, you know, address it at some point when they faced this kind of issue. So, you know, belonging to associations and ecosystem like that also helps you to leverage, you know, knowledge that is existing, you know, so because you're able to, you know, ride on what others have done, and you're able to know how to address the issue when you, in fact, even to prevent it from happening so that you don't even face it at all. So that's...
Yeah, so just to add, in terms of job shadow, I think it's an information that is out there. I think sometimes last week or 2 weeks ago on our page, we kind of put out on our LinkedIn profile stating that we employed over almost 1,000 into the job shadow program. And what I would do is just to train talent and just ensure that we have pool of resource, pool of talent, such that if one person goes, we really readily have people that are already within the institution that we can pull to. And also other companies, fintechs today, they're also very intentional. You find them doing career fairs, job fairs, where we are having lots of internship programs to ensure, because we've been beaten very bad in time past, right? Where you had the whole department just left like that, and it was really a struggle. And I think lessons have been learned, and you begin to have lots of fintechs, even financial institutions, just training people, not because they have jobs for them, but just keeping those pool of talent such that by the time one person is leaving, it's not a total trying to raise someone from beginning. The person is already in the system. You understand what needs to be done and can almost fit it into that particular job roles. So these conversations have been spoken about every time. It's all over there, right? It's just for companies to be very intentional about how they would grow as the talents or whatever it is happening within our markets, within the talent space, begins to evolve, basically.
So thank you very much for your time. A round of applause for the panelists and a round of applause for yourself. Thank you so much.
Quick photographs, please. I'll welcome the editor of Business Day, Mr. Tayo Fagbuli, for a photograph with the panelists. Thank you. Once again, a round of applause to our esteemed speakers and our moderator for doing a fantastic job on that panel. They did so well. I mean, I still have my own questions, but I have to take it outside of this place because we are already pressed for time and we like to respect the time of our audience and our guests. So we'll be going straight to our next panel session, and our next panel session will be focused on customer experience in digital payment. I will just be introducing our panelists and our moderator very quickly. So please, when they're coming up stage, please, we make them feel very welcome with a resounding round of applause. So I'll start by introducing Mr. Kolawole Daunsi, is the head of business development at Zitra Microfinance Bank, and they are one of our sponsors. So please, let's make him feel very welcome as he comes up stage. Thank you. Next up is Ms. Inkebet Mesele. She's the Senior Director, Solutions Management Visa, Sub-Saharan Africa. Please make her feel welcome with a round of applause. Thank you. And last but not least is Ms. Elizabeth Ekanem, my namesake, the Head of Customer Experience at Kuda. Thank you. And to manage this panel is the Business Days online editor, Mr. Temik Bamboshe. Is coming with his hat. Thank you so much. Please make him feel welcome with a round of applause. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I was looking for the opportunity to call names so that I'll call them right and I won't murder anybody's name. But Elizabeth already did that for me. But as we go on, I'll be calling names and I'll show my skills, my name calling skills. All right. Our session is about the importance of balancing security with user experience in digital payment. And we'll be exploring the new technologies like AI that has been called in the first panel session. And we'll be talking about personalizations and the behavior of Gen Zs, and because they are a lot now. So to set the tone for that our discussion, I would like to read out this quote by Peng Ning, the VP Engineering of Samsung. He said, "Whilst usability is key for payments, security is a necessary condition for people to use them. Balancing usability and security is one of the keys to healthy relationship between OEMs and end users." I would want to emphasize on that first part. Usability is key for payments, but security is a necessary condition for people to use them. And with this, I go to the first question that I will be directing to Ms. Ekanem. And this is, how are customer expectations for digital payments evolving in Nigeria? What are there demographic preferences, and what are some of the key factors influencing this?
Okay. For customer experience, from the customer experience perspective, right, what we have seen so far is that our customer base basically are youths, first thing first, right? And then they are the ones that embrace the digital payments systems. They're the ones that embrace the digital banks these days. So you find out that the first thing first is that you need to build systems that your customers are going to embrace. Before now, we're used to the brick and mortar systems where customers would prefer to go to banks and then have the tally numbers, I think as the keynote speaker said, right? And then when banks are evolving and building banking apps, where customers from the comfort of their homes can download the app, open an account, and then start transacting after all the regulatory processes have been put in place. You find out that the people that first embrace this are the youths. After which they start bringing in the more mature demographic, that's the adults, the older people. And these older ones, we have observed over time that as soon as they are fully onboarded, they are satisfied with the banking applications. So for if you're looking at age limits, you're looking at the youth first of all, and then the older people who are now embracing digital systems more. Because find out that you have your parents who maybe before now they believed in going to the bank, but right now they're interested in, if you put them through and you tell them, Mommy, do you know what? This app, you don't need to go anywhere. From the comfort of your home, you can transfer money to your grandchildren, and they're excited about that. So the older ones are also embracing it. And then also we're seeing that looking at the locality, right? So you have more urban than rural people. Yeah. And then you find out that maybe up north, those that have the resources can, but in the West, everybody has a phone. And everybody is downloading the app, whether they understand what it is or not. So for us in customer experience, we're interested in understanding our different customer base and then supporting them in such a way that you have access to banking solutions and we support you and protect your accounts with us and ensure that wherever you're from, whether you're the old or the young, or from the rural or the urban areas, you're fully supported and you're able to transact seamlessly and securely.
Thank you very much. So I would go to Nkebet Mesele. I got that right? All right. Is it the same evolutionary trend with you too?
Yes, so I mean it is. I think one important fact to state is Visa is not a customer-facing entity. Our customers are the banks, the different banks, the fintechs, and so we will never hold money. And so what we do is we build the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Now, when you look at customer experience and the use of AI and machine learning, I'll probably just take you from using three products or three solutions, for instance. So the first one is we actually have what is called a Visa analytics platform, where you use that platform, everything you get there is analytics, how you benchmark against your consumers or how you benchmark against the different institutions in your country, even how you benchmark against Africa. You also use it to know the patterns your clients are going, and our clients also use it to understand their customers better. When I go to fraud prevention, for instance, we also have a lot of scores using machine learning, using AI, where we detect the fraud before it happens. So for instance, if somebody used their card 30 minutes ago in Ghana and is using the same card again in Nigeria, it doesn't take 30 minutes to get from Ghana to Nigeria. So automatically that block would happen, because it's what we call country jumping. So we use those things for fraud prevention. We have a scoring and an authentication that happens, catching it before, so it's now more proactive than reactive. Then the third one I'd just like to mention quickly is on credit scoring. So when you look at lenders, as against where we have issues where people borrow and they're unable to pay, what we have is a credit scoring product or solution that we give our customers, our clients, that they're able to detect based on the patterns. So if somebody, for instance, has used their card and has insufficient funds, maybe 3 times, definitely you will take a decision on whether you want to borrow this person money or not. So those are the kinds of things, and everything runs on AI, on machine learning. So it's not a human intervention, and it's not after the fact. So those are the kind of things we're doing.
Thank you very much. You have touched on my next question. So before I go to that next question, I would like
Kolawole Downsi.
Kolawole Downsi. I added the far. Well.
No, it's not there.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much. From our own angle and our own point of view, it's a different ball game entirely. because I'll pick it from the angle of saying that human wants.
Can you move the mic?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll pick it from the angle of saying human wants is totally insatiable. And this is what led to this race. The race, meeting customers' demand, getting to give customers the best of services at all times. Demands. And then the next thing is, how do we make these people come to us? What do we put on the table? So when we're providing apps, for example, these apps are often driven by AIs anyway. And when you're providing these apps, what do? You make sure that it's highly interactive. You make sure that it's appealing. It's something somebody wants to see. I can't imagine downloading an app now and then I'm seeing some very odd colors. The first thing I want to do is dump it. And the way things flow is such that the age of technology flows with the millennials. And then the Gen Zs have taken over. Whatever is not appealing to their conscience, is not appealing to their senses, trust me, it's not likely going to appeal to a millennial. Because a millennial is probably still used to the old or the conventional ways of doing things. And then he's in between the lines. And then after some time, okay, let me just accept this new system. Let me accept this new style. But the Gen Z, and that is why this category of people, they are the primary set of people that most organizations will look at to make decisions. Those are the key people you look at to test. Because this category of people, because after all, anyway, business is all about making profit. So at the end of the day, the plan is go after this category of people. Let them be the sample tester. Let them be the one to tell us what the customer experience will be. Such that way, we know that whatever we're releasing to the public, we're releasing a product, we're releasing things that is going to actually hit the pain points of clients. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. So, how, you mentioned an analytic the other time. So, how is you as a business, how are you leveraging that data and analytic to personalize the digital experience for your customers?
One thing I always say is if you have data and you're not using it, you might as well not have anything. It's okay to compete on sales, but when your data starts to affect things like risk and credit scoring, it becomes coercive and it becomes a collaboration tool. So what we do is, because we have the opportunity of seeing data across the world, we are able to map patterns. And so if we see a pattern, for instance, starting in Kazakhstan, where, and I'll give a typical scenario. So a few weeks ago, we saw a spike in transactions from Kazakhstan to a country in Africa. I'm not going to mention the name. And what we immediately started to do was to trace where Kazakhstan had sent money to, and other places Kazakhstan had sent money to, and we started to warn this country to say, you're probably at risk of an attack. And so because we have the privilege of having global data, we advise our clients and we use it. So we have what is called the value in kind service, where we perform advisory, and we say this advice is for you to choose what you want to use it for. You can act on it, or you can keep in view. So we put all those things in the analytics platform. Or sometimes if it's a risk issue that has just happened or a trigger we saw in another country, we don't wait to put it on the analytics platform. We share it directly with our clients, like we call it pressure gauge. So we share it directly to our clients, to the risk managers, the compliance managers, so they can act on it. I recall, I think last Christmas was the first Christmas I had a good Christmas, because the fraud guys all over the world are very active in December, and so it's just things you watch out for and you use this analytics. And that's why AI has really helped us now, because before we would have had to do it manually, but now with AI we're able to detect it quickly about October. And yeah.
Wow. What she said has got me thinking about movies, how the guys with the loose ties, how they run around, and You know, so it's pretty much sometimes matters of national security. And that will lead me to my last question, but it wasn't supposed to be, it was supposed to be my last question, but it will be my next question because you touched on it. And I would like everyone to weigh in on this. How do you balance customer expectation with regulatory requirements? Because you just touched on seeing patterns and having to warn. So now you have fine, like Downsy said, you have to make fine apps that people would want to be absorbed into, yet you also want your apps to be very fast, and when I'm sending money to somebody, I want to hear bangao immediately. Maybe that's not how your phone sounds, but I want to hear the alert immediately. So how do you balance all these things? And I know that these AIs, they are like spirits. They have to hit one server here, hit another one here before they come back. And sometimes it is not fast, but I want my money fast. My clients want their money fast. So how do you balance user experience with regulatory requirements?
Okay, thank you very much. I would say it's a pretty difficult ballgame because the regulatory environment we have in Nigeria today, I would say to some extent, technology has gone way beyond it. Initially, when the previous individuals were speaking, they talked and mentioned some parts that had to do with regulations. Now, every bank, for example, there's something we call oath of secrecy. You won't expect a bank to divulge the information of its customer with you, irrespective of who you are, except there's a written authority on such from the law court. Now, how do we balance this? First and foremost, enlightenment. We ensure that customers, at the point of onboarding, you understand exactly what you're coming in for. Now, this is a very tedious task because some white people often say that if you want to hide any information from a black man, put it in a book. He's probably not going to read it. So sometimes, I was talking to a friend this morning, and we were talking about loans and how you access it in banks, and he was asking me a question that, okay, how come they just wake up one day and come for your security and they just sell it? I said, do you even bother to read the terms and conditions before signing the offer letter? Oftentimes, everybody just comes. So in balancing the equation, you have to constantly remind clients. Now, we are in a client-facing business, so we have to interact with clients on a daily basis. So one of the first things, which is the major thing we do, is to ensure that there is that face-to-face interaction that tells you exactly what you're coming in for. This is exactly what you're doing. Because the truth is, even if you write it from now till tomorrow on the app, a lot of people are not going to see it. The only thing they want to do is go to do exactly the reason for which they've downloaded that app, get it done, and they move on. But when money is missing, heaven will fall. So oftentimes, we do more on educating the clients. It's a very tedious task. It's a very tedious one. Because you can imagine having to talk to somebody on the phone and they don't understand you. You have to keep talking over and over again. And these are things people will just pick up a book and read up. It's simple. Even on the app, you can just find it there. You will read it. But really, how many of us bothers to read those things?
They are written in fine prints and they are long. But we should read them.
We should. We should, actually. So it's constant engagement. It's difficult, but I must tell you, it's proven to be one of the only efficient ways at the moment.
Thank you. You want to weigh in on that?
Okay, yes. So as he has said, consumer education is very important. We don't just look at educating the customers who are reaching out to us, but as the previous speakers have also spoken about, most fintechs right now educate customers on social media, right? We're part of the fintech organizations who were told to stop onboarding customers, and onboarding does not mean the business is shut down. But as the previous speaker spoke about, customers, they're rushing to move out their funds, transfer money, and all of those things. So when you talk about customer education, consumer education, you're telling customers, we have put the information in-app, we expect you to read this information. We've had situations where the process of, like earlier in the year when the CBN came up with the regulation and said, for every tier of account, you have certain rules. So for tier 1, you can onboard with your BVN or your NIN. For tier 2, you have both BVN and NIN. And then for tier 3, the account must be fully, must go through full KYC processes. You find out that some customers who had just the BVN or just NIN on their accounts as a tier 1 customer, to move to tier 2, you're required to provide your BVN. And because they came into the system and they could not transfer their funds at that point in time, when you log onto your account, right, what you see is a screen that tells you, please include your BVN here if you want to upgrade your account. But as he has said, education is important, that we keep on re-emphasizing what we need customers to know. Then for regulations, the CBN came up with a consumer protection program where every bank has a consumer protection liaison officer, basically, that engages the regulators and the banks. It's very important that these liaison officers function as they were created, basically, to function. A consumer protection champion in a bank is supposed to get feedback from customers and take it back to the regulators, especially regarding regulations that do not favor customers. So, as I always tell people, the regulations were put in place to protect the banks and the customers. For the banks, is to ensure that your business continues to run, and for the customers is to protect you from risk, fraudulent transactions, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, the CPD, basically, liaison officers, are meant to get feedback from customers. Like we said from the last conversation, right? When a customer is reaching out to an organization to complain about a fraud on his account, basically, you're reporting to the receiving bank. The regulation does not protect the, so you're reporting to the beneficiary bank, that's the receiving bank. The sending bank is supposed to be the one that the customer would be speaking to. So I'm a customer of a particular organization, I should reach out to my bank. Most times, because there are no end-to-end processes built into the systems, you find out that in reaching out to my bank, before they get to my conversation to treat it, and write to the receiving bank, the money has been moved. You'll be hearing feedback like, oh, funds fully withdrawn, we cannot help you, or, oh, we have been able to salvage this amount of money. Salvage in the sense that I've been able to, maybe 1 million left, and then, oh, just 50,000 we're able to salvage. So for us as liaison officers to regulations, regulators, we're telling them, when this feedback comes, is it possible, if the bank can be protected, as the last speaker said, protected in the sense that the feedback comes, a complaint is received by a non-customer, I am protected by regulation to maybe restrict the funds for a period of time, such that before the other bank is reaching out to us, right, I've been able to protect the customer's funds. I can fully say, oh, funds have been fully salvaged and, process the court orders, because court orders only work when the account is funded. But when the account is not funded, those court orders do not work. So it's important that we have that regulation, protecting both the receiving banks and the beneficiary banks, so that when the court order comes, it's just a matter of, okay, let us process refund, engage our customers, the time you use to engage your customers, because sometimes you're reaching out to a customer and they're not responding to your mails. And because they haven't responded to your mails, nothing really can be done. The receiving bank can restrict the account, even after the funds have been fully withdrawn. But after that, you need to get the customer to fund the account if he was not supposed to utilize those funds, and you cannot get in touch with them. But if there's a situation where we have an end-to-end process where you have somebody reporting a transaction and you have a timeline to restrict those funds, and then get the receiving bank or the sending bank to engage you, you go through the regulatory processes, to ensure that everything is fine, the money is secure, and if in the event my customer comes back to say, oh yes, it's true, I received money erroneously, I can transfer it, So that's one thing. Having the liaison officers for consumer protection, protecting the customers, speaking to things that are affecting customers at the end of the day, and then getting the regulators to maybe just tweak the policies a bit to protect customers. That would help.
Thank you very much. You have said a lot on that, and I have picked a lot. But let me let me pause a bit so that we can take photos with the editor. Then we'll continue for the next 3 minutes. We'll just take the photos, then we'll continue. Please do not forget the next thought.
Thank you very much. Just because one of our sponsors is about to leave, so we wanted to just take a quick photograph with them. So I'll be inviting our sponsors upstage so they can take a photograph with our esteemed speakers. We already have Mr. Kolawole Daunsi, the head of business development at Zitra Microfinance Bank. Then I'll be welcoming Mr. Efemena Ogie, the head of partnerships at Money Point Microfinance Bank, and also Mr. Enyoma Madubuike, the chief legal and compliance officer at Cora. And I'll be welcoming also our editor at Business Day, Mr. Tayo Fagule, alongside the chief sales and marketing officer of Business Day, Mrs. Ijoma Ude. Thank you very much.
Yeah, somebody press play. Okay, so the question that we were looking at before we went on the short break was how do you balance customer expectation with regulatory requirement? We've heard education, everyone mentioned education as very important, and I agree because the means by which you try to educate us via the app is very inadequate. And we've heard about the end-to-end process. It should be faster. It should be faster, and there should be more integration between the organizations so that money would not have left before. So, Mesele. Nkebet. Okay. It's your turn to weigh in on that.
So I think, and the speakers are fantastic. So they liaise directly with customers, so they feel the pain points of the customers. I'll take it from a different standpoint as relates to regulation. A lot of times I find that we don't engage our regulators enough, and when I mean regulators is, these are the people who define the policies. Now, when I look at the guide to banking guidelines or something, that thing should have been rewritten like 4 years ago. So we are working with a regulation that is still. And so as much as we engage our customers are benchmarking us from a customer experience based on what they see other clients do. But at the same time, the players here and other fintech players are constricted based on what regulation allows. So there needs to be that engagement also with the regulator from a thought leadership standpoint. And as Visa, we do that from time to time, but there's a limit to what we can do. But there's also a place for the people who are working directly with these customers, who serve these customers, to sort of show these trends to the regulator. Now, one thing that's important to mention is the regulator is also in a difficult place because, like Mr. Dawson said, they may put regulations that tend to make customer experience better. But these same people you're trying to make their experience better, when there's a fraud, they will forget that you were trying to make their lives easy and they will scream. So I don't know how much education can be done to take out that fine print, but I think it's also getting the backing of disclaimers from a regulatory standpoint to say, and for instance, I'll give you an example. Contactless is going live where you tap to pay. And one thing the central bank, has done, which we were not very happy about, but in retrospect, we're like, maybe that is better, is to say for every customer, so the CBN told the banks that before any customer can tap their card on contactless, they should opt in. So what this means is that you have opted in. Now, does it taint the customer experience a bit? Yes, it does, because now the banks and the fintechs are having to find places, maybe put something on their app where the customer can opt in for their card to be opened. As a customer, I may want to tap, but I wasn't aware I needed to opt in. But at the same time, there's also that protection, because where somebody takes their card and taps, they'll say, but I did not allow for my card to be tapped, So it's baby steps. I think we have a regulator now who's a bit more engaging, but I think they can be better. So I think the rules and the guidelines all need to be revised, looking at what entails today, present day reality, and then maybe mandating some intelligence to be put in each customer-facing application based on, like Elizabeth talked about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Based on your level of digital sophistication, you have different cadres of rules and things that can be put that the machine learning allows you. So that'll be my take.
I thank you very much. I have a screaming headline from what you said already. let me validate it. Guidelines for fintechs are still.
I shall not be quoted.
But yeah, some of the guidelines should have been rewritten, you said, 4 years ago.
Post-COVID, because a lot changed after COVID. A lot.
So why are we sleeping on it? Okay, that's Gen Z language. Why have we not changed it? Why have the regulators not changed it?
I wish I could answer that.
Okay. Okay. So.
But here's what I see happening. I think it's that proverbial chicken and egg situation. A central bank is also a government entity with a lot of bureaucracy. So they are probably working on it. Unfortunately, the environment is moving faster than their processes.
So this leads me to one question that I penned down. I have 3 minutes before I call on the audience to come and ask their questions. But I would like to ask this of everyone. What are the biggest challenges hindering the wider adoption of digital payments in Nigeria, and how can this be addressed? You see, we touched it a bit while discussing the balance, but are there some specifics that we haven't touched? Okay. Mr. Downsey?
Okay, thank you very much. For me, I would say it's more of infrastructure challenge for this country. We're in a country where a lot of things are not done the way it should be done. You get to a point you're even confused. Like there's an information overload. Not the information is even the right information. So you're battling with which one do I believe in? Because today, you're seeing things tilting in this direction, and then tomorrow is going another direction. So you don't have constant electricity. You don't have constant laws or regulatory, I don't know how to explain this now. You don't have regulatory bodies on standby to say, okay, exactly this is what we mean by this regulation, and this exactly is what is expected of you. Recently, I can figure how many weeks ago now, almost everybody had a downtime on their phones and everything. Why? Because the fiber optic cable is severed somewhere. And then everything went flat out. In Nigeria today, we have to put, for your organization to thrive, you have to put everything you need in place by yourself. Now, the cost of doing business is going up by the day. Everybody that is working with you is probably looking out for a take. So it's a complex web. You see, infrastructure is a major issue. And it cuts across a lot more than we can say on this platform. Yeah, so for me, I'll just say from the standpoint of view, infrastructure challenge is a key and major one. Thank you.
Thank you. Ekonom?
So I agree with him, infrastructure. That's a major one. We know how in customer support, customer experience, you have customers reach out to you and you're wondering, I'm able to connect where I am, why can't I connect where you are? And you find out that they're having low network, poor network connectivity, and all of those things. That's one major one. The second one is trust. For digital payments, customers need to trust the system. We've recently invested in a social media engagement tool to help us curb fraud on social media channels. So you find out that once you invest in this kind of solutions and you tell your customers, and they're saying that before the fraudsters reach them, you have already engaged them. So I was telling someone recently, these fraudsters, that's their major work, right? Your job is to manage the customer. There are different kind of customer complaints that come up that you have to address, request inquiries, and then these guys are just waiting on your social media channel to hit your customers. And then by the time you're going to say, hi, I am this person from this organization, you find out that there's already a fraudster's message waiting with your bank's logo. And this is where the social engineering comes in. And the customers, unfortunately, click those links and move out of that space. And as he said earlier also, we talked about customer education. You know, we keep on using all of our channels to educate customers, telling them, you are not supposed to, you know, click on this link. We would never ask you to click on a link. We would never ask you to go on a WhatsApp channel because we don't support people on WhatsApp. We've educated you on our channels for support. But you find out that customers keep on going to all of those things. So first of all, for a bank, we invest in infrastructure. Then you ensure that you build trust with your customers because they need to trust you to keep more money with you and use you as their main, as we always say, top of wallet application. They should be able to trust you to say, I can move all of my finances here. I know that before the fraudsters hit me, my bank has notified me, right? And then that is where we talk about moving away from the rules that we put in fraud prevention, and then investing in like an end-to-end process where you say, if you come to me to complain about a fraud on your account, without any human intervention, I can stop that fraud from occurring, right? Customers will be uncomfortable with it initially because you have stopped their transactions from going out, but at the end of the day, they'll be happy. We've had some customers come back to tell you, I'm happy that you didn't allow this money to go out. I've not received this kind of money before. How did you allow this money to go out of my account? But there's some customers that will come and tell you, I received this money, it was for an urgent need, and you're not responding to me. So if you have a process that you've built, I think the keynote speaker spoke to where he used his card outside of the country and he was notified, and he just responded with yes, and then he was able to pay for his trip. So if you have a process that speaks to, from the time the restriction is done, till the time that the questions are asked of you, till we get the response from maybe your preferred channel of response, if it's your registered email or registered phone number, and then we leave the restriction without you physically coming to my office or writing to me, that process is seamless. The customers trust that if you place a restriction, I'm sure that the restriction will be lifted in the next 5 minutes. And once you build that trust and you're consistent with your processes, you have, you know, you have won the customer over, basically. So it's infrastructure that's a major problem, and then trust issues, and then investing in infrastructure, and then building trust are the two things that we can do to, make customers adopt digital payment systems. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I still have more questions, but it is time for members of the audience to ask. Do you want to weigh in on that? Okay. So let's have members of the audience ask their questions. So I have the madam in yellow. I happen to know her name, Linda.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Linda. So we've been hearing a lot about protection, and my question, I don't know if it's for your companies or the banks. So what happens when I know one of the speakers from the first panel talked about how her husband's WhatsApp number was hacked. I also experienced that problem 2 years ago, December, where one of my auntie's WhatsApp number was hacked, and the guy started sending messages to everyone. And I transferred money from my GT to a Wema Bank account, but it's the POS account. And then I traveled from GT to Wema, from Wema to GT, from Wema to GT for almost 3 months, and I was extremely, very frustrated. Now, my pain wasn't that I transferred, because we're quite a lot, maybe almost ₦1 million from different people who transferred money. My pain was the fact that the banks told me that they do not know that account. That was my pain. Now, you tell us that there are loads of verifications from BVN to NIM to NIM, so many things, which is very painful. Now, if my banks, that's Wema and GT, tell me that they don't know who the owner of this POS account holder is, then I'm shocked. It means that we don't really have security. It means anybody could take my money, and my money is not as safe as they claim. My question will be, how do you protect us from, it's inevitable that we're going to see fraud, but the confidence we have with the banks is the fact that they tell us that the bank is secured, which is why we take our money there in the first place. Till today, I've never seen till today, they didn't even call me back. GT promised to give me a call back telling me that the customer service will reach out to me. I don't even know, even if it's to say sorry, that my money can be traced, or sorry, my money is gone. Till today, I got no message from anyone, both from Wema or to GT, giving me a trace. All they could tell me is, because it's not within GT, we don't have access to the other bank, and we can't trace the bank. What do we do to protect the customers during these kind of situations?
Okay, let's take a few more hands before we go. Please don't forget, we are talking about customer experience in digital payments. How it enhances. Okay, so that hand at the back, at the far back, yes. And then, okay, we have him too. So just 3. And okay, the last on the far left here. So I have a triangle. Someone on that far left, someone at the far back there, wearing black, and someone wearing gray at the far right here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, panelists. My name is Osilike Peter, branding and communications for OTL Africa Downstream. My question goes in this line. I know there was in the finding done by NIBSS in January this year, out of 160 million of the Nigerian adult population, only 60.2 million actually have bank accounts. It means that a lot of people still prefer to keep their funds at home. So my question is this: do we think that Nigerian institutions are doing enough to educate their customers about the concept of digital payment security, or is there a heavy reliance on the assumption that people will figure it out as they go on?
Thank you very much, Osidike. We have at the back there.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, distinguished panelists. My name is Awala, and my question is this. So you have a situation where there's a lot of misinformation and uneducated audience, how do we solve for these kinds of people? I mean, it's huge online, and I'm just going to create a scenario. So you have a situation where your account has been compromised by your negligence, one way or another, and then you come online, spin the narrative because you're looking to curry public sentiments that, oh, your bank is the source of the compromise, and then the very thing that the bank has asked you to do, you don't do it. But then you come online and drag them like Tiger Generator, and it just creates this backlash for the bank, and you still haven't done what you're supposed to do. All right? How do we solve for this big problem? Because I see it over and over and over again online, especially. How do we solve for this? And just jointly tied to that is the fact that there's this claim that a lot of the responses that consumers get online are sort of rote, so it has sort of like an AI or scripted leg to it. How do we solve also for personalization of messages in terms of enhancing the customer experience? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awala. And the last person here in gray jacket.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aziz Ibrahim, and I'll just go straight to the point. So I want to ask, how do you think most fintech companies currently view customer experience? Do they see it as a checklist compliance, or how they actually need to give the customer a good customer experience? And I'll put it this way. For example, a company knows that, okay, maybe they need to, if a customer comes to complain, they need to give them a tracking ID, this and that. And this same company now is like, what they now go ahead to do is, a customer complains, they give you the ID, they do this and that, but without actually solving your issue. So all they're just trying to do is just to make sure that, okay, we are following the regulations and all, and not actually do this. How do you think most companies view customer experience, from a checklist compliance or an actual operational risk management?
Thank you very much. So you want to start with that, all right?
Okay. So for customer experience, let me start with this question. We always say this: customer experience is both a noun and a verb. So as a noun, you see it as the name is customer experience, but as a verb is an action, is a living thing. Yes, the processes are put to give you tracking numbers so you can get back to your bank, or sometimes even escalate to regulators, and with that tracking number, they can get back to your bank and you can trace that complaint. However, so many things can be done. Feedback is a major factor. The resolution may not be sitting with the bank totally. It may be dependent on another organization. And I know that customers, from my experience, most of the time, they're just waiting for you to give them feedback. What they want to hear is, I have escalated it, or we're working on it. We haven't received any response yet, but rest assured, this is still being investigated. So if you keep on getting the feedback that you require for your issues, you don't see it as, I'm ticking a checklist. So I have ticked the checklist. I have given you the first response, the tracking number. I've also given you the first response telling you that I've escalated it. And sometimes it's dependent on another organization. Now, if it's within my space, we understand that for things within our space, we would follow through to resolution because we have the power to resolve. But when you're dependent on the switches and the different people that are supposed to help you pass a transaction through, or sometimes in the event of fraud, right? And as I explained earlier, the funds have been fully withdrawn. In that situation, I always tell people, asking someone to give you a court order when you cannot use that court order to get money from the beneficiary's accounts is a waste of time and money. It's important that you tell the customer the situation of things, and then sometimes we advise, if you can engage law enforcement, because they're the ones that can force you or force the organization to give the information to the other party. So if I'm saying that as a beneficiary bank, as she claimed, I do not have a record of my customer information, right? Instead of going to the bank periodically, the bank has tried their best in some situations, but sometimes you would need extra help. And it's
Extra help?
Yes, so when we say you escalate to, so the bank has done within the regulatory guidelines to ensure that they've engaged the other bank. And I'm not sure of her situation, but I know that every account resides in a bank. So if you say that the account belongs to a POS, where does that POS reside? Who is the POS acquirer? That person is the person that's supposed to give you that information, or maybe not even give you the information, you know. They will tell you, okay, she's going from GT to Wema. That's what she said. But one of those people have the information that is required. So for her, it's to get extra help from regulators and also get extra help from law enforcement, especially if it's a fraud and it's a confirmed fraud. Then for here, the person at the back who asks about, so for him I said feedback, for her it's just to get additional help. And then from the person at the back who asks for education, for his is education. So most banks depend on, you've educated the customers on what to do, but they have failed to follow the process that you've laid down, and then they're soliciting for, you know,
PT,
public
they're calling
PT
PT.
and everything. Sometimes as a bank, there's not so much you can do, but you have community of people that you have built trust over time with. They're the ones that will go on social media and say, why did you click on the link? Your bank, there's a header on this page that says, do not click on the link. Why did you click on the link? So you find out that you have your customers actually advocating for you because you've taken your time to educate them, and you're just going to help this customer in that situation to try and resolve his issue, because you cannot stop the problems that have occurred on his account, right? And I'm sorry, the final person's question.
You can let, do you want to weigh on it too? Yeah, because we have just a few more minutes, so let's, thank you very much, Ekanem.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk on two. I don't need to talk on the rest because she did. So for Linda, who had the issue, and I want to empathize with you, and sorry about that experience. We need to, as citizens and as consumers, know the rights and the privileges we have. Like Elizabeth mentioned, do you have your Consumer Protection Council? And they've been quite vocal in the last year in helping people, you know, resolve things. The law enforcement is there, but I've seen Consumer Protection Council also help out quite a bit, because sometimes these things get to us. You know, EFCC also helps. EFCC has been vocal as well. They help. So don't think that the money is minute or it's small. What also happens is you may be one of 10 that they've been trying to follow up for a particular investigation. And your complaint would help in resolving those challenges. And from a regulator perspective, I know that one thing that had started is it's a big problem. And what happened in your case is there's one account that probably is a pool account that probably has 50 POSs issued under it. So that is why they will tell you they are unable to trace, which is a rot in the system that is trying to be corrected. And so I know one of the things the central bank has been trying to do is do that sanitization, where they're saying every POS should have a merchant ID, should have an account registered, and every POS owner must have a company incorporated, so that it's not Femi that has been issued a POS. Sorry if there's a Femi here. That has been issued a POS, you know. It actually belongs to an entity. So that way it starts to curb. Unfortunately, before we get there, people will have suffered, but you need to realize that you have a right to report this and escalate. That's one. On his answer on digital payments being 60%, the report by NIBS, I would say that is great, because for a third world and a cash, you know, driven economy, 60% is good. Are we where we are? No. Are we where we want to be? No. But what has happened is post the cashless, and this was largely driven by cashless, because when the Naira denomination or redesign was happening, a lot of people were forced to get cards, to open bank accounts so they could do transfers and all those things. Now, what needs to happen is everything we've said. People need to trust the system. If you tell a man in Daura that he should stop putting money in his Babariga and start to put it in an account, you need to be able to ensure that he trusts it. And he trusts that when he goes and he cannot speak English to the cashier, they will not deny him his funds because he cannot speak English. So it's a whole ecosystem player. I think this baby has many parents, and we all need to come together to ensure it's done.
Thank you very, very much. I know you want to weigh in. Can you do that in less than 30 seconds?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll still go back to her. And I'll say, based on experience, I'll tell you practically, there is no account that is opened without KYC. So I'm going to tell you straight. It's just because of the oath of secrecy, they can't divulge information of the merchant to you. But however, the process flow is such that you are expected to report to your bank, and then your bank writes straight to the bank of the beneficiary. Instantly, the account is blocked and tracked for investigation. Now, you now have to follow further by reporting to the likes of FCCPC, EFCC, and all those. It's just a simple report. Sometimes it can take a pretty long time, but I can assure you that money will come back. So oftentimes, I would just advise, for knowledge's sake, get who your account officer is and let him worry about it. So, and then briefly for the man over there, I would say that fintech is scientific in nature. So the way fintech operates is to pick on data and then look at patterns and then develop solutions in line with that pattern to resolve a particular challenge. So it's not in such a way that it's 100% targeted at customer experience. Because trust me, in Nigeria today, people still believe in human interaction. So if I have to call a bank, I'll still appreciate it more if I'm talking to an individual rather than talking to a robot. Do you understand? So that's just the summary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. I have really enjoyed your company, Mr. Kolawole, Ms. Nkebet, and Ms. Elizabeth. Thank you very much. If I were to do a small, we can stand up for, Yes, we'll be taking pictures. If I were to do a what's it called now? What would stand out would be infrastructure, it will be education, and it will be trust. So thank you very much for educating us.
Once again, I have to commend this panel for making sure that it was engaging but yet on time. So once again, please let's appreciate them with a round of applause. Thank you. So we're moving on beautifully now to our next panel, and this panel is focusing on collaborative approaches to fraud prevention. And I'm very excited for this panel, and I know you are too, because I really hope that with this panel, I'll be able to find my 95,000 naira that I lost in March to frauds. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to find a way to get it back. So this panel, I'll be introducing our panelists, and I know that I'll do justice to the pronunciations. When I call them, please, I would like you to, with a big resounding applause, make them feel welcome to the stage. First on my list is Dr. Aminu Maida, the Executive Chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Communications Commission, ably represented by Mr. Babagana Digima, the Head of New Media and Information Security Department at the Nigerian Communications Commission. Thank you. And next is Mr. Efemena Ogie, is the Head of Partnerships at Money Point Microfinance Bank. Please make him feel welcome with a round of applause. Thank you. And last but not least is Mr. Oguzi Moses, is the Assistant Commander of the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, Lagos Command. Please make him feel welcome with a round of applause. Thank you. And to moderate this panel is another Temi, Mr. Temitayo Jayola, the Head of Tech and Media Desk, Business Day Media. Thank you.
Good, okay, it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. And sorry, you're seeing me again. I really enjoyed the last session, and I think we'll just be picking it up from there. Interestingly, this is the conversation with the principals. You know how you go to school, and then once in a while the principal calls you to the office. I guess this is that kind of conversation we're going to be having here. We have the NCC, we have the EFCC, and then we have Money Point here. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Timothy once again.
Thank you.
Everything that happens around fraud, largely in Nigeria today, is mobile driven. There's a whole lot of mobile. I mean, they steal your SIM, they use your SIM, they steal your phone, they use your phone, and our lives revolve around mobiles. What are telcos doing? How are telcos thinking about fraud today? I know they are not financial, they don't play in the financial space, but then, I mean, they have a key role to play. So, straight up, what are telcos thinking about? How are they thinking about the space?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think you are quite right. A lot of fraud happens or is aided by the mobile devices or through the mobile devices because of their pervasiveness. Telcos, like you mentioned, they are not actually financial institutions, but what they do, they also have their limitations, and generally between the NCC, who is the regulator of the telecom industry, and the MNOs, who are the major drivers of the industry, we have a lot of things that were put in place. For example, we have the CSAT for the telecommunications industry, that is Cybersecurity Incident Response Team, who is virtually working almost round the clock. In fact, one of the efforts that the EVC is making is to make sure that we have staffing for 24/7 across at the CSAT. And the major thing that we're doing there is, of course, we're looking at patterns of fraud, we're looking at threats, we're looking at so many of those things that are coming through the MNOs. And many of them we see related to financial institutions, we escalate to the relevant authorities to deal with. And that's one. Then secondly, of course, you know, our efforts in terms of our own SIM registration, which is a form of KYC for the industry, and which, of course, has helped us a lot. But there are still things that we're noticing in the industry that we're trying to address. For instance, the issue of recycling of SIMs, which is one of the major things the fraudsters are using. A lot of Nigerians lose their SIMs and they don't bother to go and get it back. Instead, they go and get another new one because it's cheaper. So it's an effort, of course, that we are looking at. One thing we could simply have done is to increase the cost of acquiring new SIMs, but then that is also going to be detrimental to the industry. So we are putting an effort in that regard, and we're also working with law enforcement, and we're also looking at, of course, the regulations that are coming in, like the data protection and the Cybercrime Act and the rest. But then this takes me again back to people who are in the industries, both the financial industry, the telcos and others, and even the ordinary Nigerians, for us to look at things like regulation before they become acts, when they are bills. So you look at that, you point out the challenges in that. And some of the challenges, like previous panelists have put in, is the issue of getting court injunctions to stop financial transactions or fraudulent transactions. It takes time to get a court injunction. And it's the same thing that applies to even the law enforcement. Sometimes they want to act, but they need to go and get a court injunction. And of course, the fraudsters are very smart. They normally do things over the weekend when they know that it's difficult for you to either get the office or to get the bank or to get the law enforcement, to get the courts and the rest. So those are things that we are looking at, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to encourage people. Once the bills are coming in, look at it. Make sure you see such challenges before it becomes a law, before it becomes an act. So you point it out. One of the recent cases, for example, with the 0.5% cybercrime levy, this is something that has been exposed to people long before it becomes an act. And it's then that we should have made all the noise. And the thing, although the government is listening, as it has been proved, they have put it in pause. But this is things that if people have paid attention long ago, it wouldn't have even reached this stage. And it's similar with so many things in the industry, like the issue of SIM, for example. Once you lose your SIM, or it should be easy for me as a subscriber or as a customer, a bank customer, to be able to stop my SIM from working if I had issue, if I lose it or something. But these days, you go to the bank, you have to go and do write or walk into the branch or things like that before I get that stopped. And especially if I want to change that SIM, it becomes also another issue. I have to go and get police report and things like that. So these are things that we need to actually look at. And of course, like I mentioned, we in the commission are looking at how do we make it as easy as possible. So those are some of the efforts that we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will still come back to something you said, but now to Money Point. How essential is collaboration between regulators and operators, especially in fraud protection and even outside of fraud protection? How essential is collaboration?
Okay, I think the answer to this is not far-fetched. The payment landscape today is such that the velocity of payment and the volume of payment, has increased over the years. And so fraud has also increased, right? And then it is expected, because when you have a country that processes over 1.5 quadrillion naira annually, right? Of course, you would expect that, fraudsters will see that payment environment to be attractive for them to want to perpetrate their fraud, right? Now, when I made reference to 1.5 quadrillion naira, right, I would want to refer you to the CBN e-payment statistics of 2022. That figure was actually 2022. So imagine what 2023 would be and what 2024 would be, right? So we're talking about a country that processes in dollar equivalents of over $1 trillion, right? So fraud will definitely happen. I won't come here and tell you, oh, fraud can be eradicated. It's a no-no. Even in advanced countries, we still have fraud. Now, speaking to collaboration, right? When Linda, right, talked about her case, something came up to my mind to say, Nigeria, or rather the payment system today, has the capacity to self-protect against fraud. That's the truth. But we have to take actions. Today, there is a solution to solve this problem. And it was a collaborative, it's a collaborative platform. But guess what? We've not gotten it right. With AI, with machine learning, I should be able to, as a bank, right, if a fraud happens, I should be able to call or rather ring a bell on a platform, which I will call maybe transaction escalation platform, where all the stakeholders, all the banks, even CBN is connected to, right? And if in UBA my account has been hacked and money has left my account, I should be able to dial a USSD code and maybe put my PIN. It gets to my bank, and immediately my bank sends a message, real time, sends a message to that platform, right? That message will contain the destination account where the money has gone to. And immediately, the beneficiary bank blocks that fund. And it's automatic. But guess what? We have a semblance of that platform today that is hosted by NIPS. I think NIPS should, this kind of platform, you should invite NIPS, or let me speak for them. So NIPS has a platform today that all the banks are connected to, right? But guess what? The difference is, once a fraud happens, the expectation is you are supposed to report that fraud on the platform. Now, it is a portal. It is not API driven. And so because it's not API driven, there is this manual intervention. So my account has been hacked in maybe ABC Bank, and then I report, or let me even use the word, they hacked a financial institution, right? And 10 billion moved from that financial institution. Now, that financial institution will get across to NIPS to say, I have been hit, or system glitch, right? NIPS then manual intervention again, then collates the beneficiary accounts and sends to all the banks to say, please block, 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 block. Before we finish doing that, the guys have moved the funds from those accounts. That's the truth. So it should be an automated platform, and this is a message to NIPS, a message to the CBN. I'm recommending for free now. So you should have an API that all the banks will connect to, right? And whether it's the institution that is being hacked or the customers, what's it called? The bank's customers, once they send an alert, maybe via a USSD, or the bank activates an alarm to that platform, automatically the beneficiary institutions, they block the account, right? Once that is done, it means that the beneficiaries will not be able to withdraw the money. But what we are now saying now is that fraud has happened, and then you go to the beneficiaries of those accounts, they've wiped the funds, right? So, speaking to collaboration, we should all come together, right, and then see how we can automate the platform that NIPS has hosted already, automate it so that it becomes a real-time platform. And I think once that is done, we would have a way to, protect customers, right? Because you can't eradicate fraud. Fraud would always happen. Even in the US, when UK started what I call the faster payment service, right? Fraud just became, it was just going like this. So fraud would always happen, but when it happens, what is the action that the industry have put in place to curb it? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your response. Okay, so the EFCC has been, Mr. Moses, The FCC has been in the news a lot recently. And I see everybody did. And there's this misconception usually when people hear about the EFCC. There's usually a misconception around what the EFCC does. And the EFCC is crucial to fraud prevention and even getting this money back. So what role does the EFCC play in this ecosystem? And also, how can we put a more human touch to enforcement of regulation?
All right, thank you for that question. I want to say a big thank you again on behalf of the executive chairman. I was here last year for the conference, and today for this year I'm here again. Thank you for the opportunity. Now, going straight to your question, EFCC as an agency of government is not an angel, so to say. Looking at the general theme for this conference, if you ask me to summarize it, the financial institutions have real-time data. FinTech provide the algorithms, the theories behind the workings of those platforms, and the government make regulation like NCC. Then for the law enforcement agencies, whenever there is a breach of these platforms, these data are collated and forwarded to us for investigation. So you see that there is little or nothing we can do without collaborating with the FinTech, with the commercial banks, the central bank. If you check the act establishing the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, the drafters of that act in their wisdom has made major stakeholders in the country, not just the financial sector. The governor of CBN is a member of the board. The Comptroller General of Nigerian Customs Service is a member of the board. The Controller of Immigration is a member of EFCC board. I can go on and on and on in section 2. Now, what do we do? All that we do as a commission is predicated on the act establishing the EFCC, and it stands on 3 legs. Just like the tripod, the first leg is prevention. I'm sure that is where your question is centered on. The second leg is investigation. And of course, the third leg is prosecution. Now let me come back to the first leg, which is prevention. We do a lot of advocacy. I've gone to most of the commercial banks to make presentation on Money Laundering Prohibition Act. It's a huge topic, and we've done it over and over again with banks. We've done a lot of advocacy in primary, secondary, and the university. We have clubs where we try to catch the young ones. Because the rate at which we are sending our youth to prison, if we continue that way in the next 10 years, more than half of the youth population will be ex-convict. So what we have done now is to delve more into the aspect of prevention. So we have anti-corruption clubs. For those of you maybe who just finished your youth service, we have in the NYSC, where we do a lot of advocacy. But for the topic for the day, it is rather sad to note here that even the FinTech operators most times are complicit in this crime. Last week, I don't want to mention the name of the FinTech operator. The supervisor arrested the IT guy. They arrested their own staff and brought to my office for investigation. millions have been diverted by the fintech operator, the IT guy. He has access to accounts. How that will happen is maybe it will serve as a lesson to some of you who are fintech operators. He is in charge of reversing failed transactions. In the commercial banks, you see it in your account as reversal, right? Yeah, but in fintech, this guy, once your transaction fails, his job is to make sure that your money is credited back to the originating account. But when he credits the customer's account, he will equally credit his GT account, his Wema bank account, his Zenith bank account. And it kept happening over the years, and is running into hundreds of millions. As we speak, he's in the cell. He will be charged. The money will be recovered, though part has been spent. So as a commission, beyond investigation, we do a lot of advocacy with the major stakeholders in the financial sector, like the commercial bank, especially fintech operators. They are very close allies. I always tell people anywhere I go, there is little or nothing the EFCC can do without collaboration with the banks and fintech operators. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one part you missed out, having a more humane touch to enforcement.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Let me start this way. We have done our best, our very best as a commission to be the face of law enforcement, if not in Africa, West Africa. For instance, most of our officers are trained by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, which is one of the biggest in the world, domiciled in the United States of America. Even that being said, I'm not saying that we are 100% there, but considering the society we find ourselves, we must use the stick and carrot approach. If you want me to expand more on that, in advanced nations of the world, it's very difficult for you to place a lien on an account. Take, for instance, UK and US. A judge must listen to the fraud committed on that account if he's satisfied before he will give you court order and then allow you to place a lien. But the EFCC Act has empowered us. If a fraud like that of Madam Linda is noticed in an account, we have a leeway of 72 hours. A letter can be written from the EFCC and place a lien immediately on that account for 3 days. That is 72 hours. But once the time expires, we are expected to procure court order on that account. And I sat behind there listening to Madam talking about her 1 million or so. If that case is reported, it's the simplest case that even my cadets on attachment can do within 2-3 days. Because Section 38, subsection 1 and 2 of the EFCC Act empowers us to seek for information anywhere within the confine called Nigeria. Anybody from anywhere. So once your money germinates leg from Wema Bank without your permission to maybe GT, just straight up to EFCC. That same minute we'll do a letter. We have good rapport with a lot of banks. We have a lot of friends over the years. Just a phone call, send a letter. They will not attend to our request without letter anyway. We send to WhatsApp while we dispatch the hard copy. And I'm very sure her money can be recovered. So EFCC is very humane, to be fair to us. anybody that has come to our office, maybe a few may not find it very convenient, but the much I can say about the commission, we try to be very humane to our suspects.
So, thank you. I won't say anything to that. Yeah, thank you. So, I'll come back to the NCC. In your earlier conversation, you said SIM recycling is a major issue today in Nigeria. And this is because, I could lose my SIM and just go and get a new SIM. What is stopping telcos from wiping off earlier information on a SIM when they're about to sell it to a new person? Why do they still sell that SIM with all of the information that he had?
Well, thank you very much. I think what you need to understand is two things. The actual information that is of value to the fraudsters is not resident with the telcos, it's resident with the banks. It's the banks that register your number, for example, as where you get your alerts. So it's with you. What the telecom operators do is your SIM reg information, your picture, your fingerprints, and the rest. Those are things that, according to our regulation, they can wipe them out. They have 3 months after you lose your SIM. If you don't use it for any activity on the network, then they can recover it and resell. And that's because phone numbers generally are limited resources. We only have as much, and you can't go beyond that. And it's a resource that you have to just recycle. You can't just keep creating numbers because of the way it is done. Because if you have +234 then you only have the rest of the digits. So once those digits finish, you cannot go +235, for instance. That would be another country. So Nigeria is +234, and then any other thing that comes is only the only thing you can play around with. So that's because that limits the numbers. So we have to recycle it. So the big question, of course, is like you said, is for us to be able to have a better collaboration between the banks and the telcos, in the sense that if we recycle a number, for example, then we should have, like he has mentioned, we should have a form of API that automatically tells the banks that this number is being recycled. So if they have it on any of their system, then they should take it off. Not manually, but automatically through the APIs. And I think that conversation has started actually, because a month or so ago, people from the NIPS came,
just to add to that. So today, right, we already have APIs to determine whether a SIM has been swapped or recycled. So this is new, but it's something that we hope that the operators will lash on, right, just to ensure that the concerns you raised, are taken care of.
Yeah. So the conversation has already started, and I can confirm I was in the meeting with the representative of NIPS and some other banking agencies or bodies that came to see our EVC. And of course, the major the crux of the discussion centered around recycled SIMs and how we should be updating, or the MNOs should be updating the banks. And so that conversation is ongoing already, and I'm sure in a few weeks, months, we'll have sorted it out, because there are some things that need to be determined. Okay, who is going to be responsible for doing the updates, things like that. So that is there. That is the major thing. And of course, recycling of SIM, we always tell people it's better for you to recover your SIM than getting a new one. But for the people, the ordinary people on the streets that really don't bother about the history of their line, some of them are even happy. In fact, I have somebody that I've stopped saving his number because every time he calls me, he says, it's going to be a new number. And I just stopped saving his number. So that's something also we need to really enlighten the populace. And it's still going to be a collaborative effort between the MNOs, the banks, and other NGOs and the rest. So to tell them that, of course, you don't have to just change your number every time. So thank you. I think that's...
So if I got you correctly, you said it takes 3 months for me to lose my number if I don't use it. Is it 3 months or 6 months?
Well, the revision is 6 months, but I think one of the revisions that we are doing is to see whether we can reduce that. Because if you keep it for 6 months, it's still a long time for the MNO.
So you want to review to make it 3 months?
Yes, I think those are some of the calls that have been coming on from the industry to reduce that period, to say if you don't use it, you don't make any revenue generating event on that number, then they should be able to recover it and resell it. Yeah.
To you, I mean, you started that conversation already, so I'll just continue the conversation. And it's largely around regulations, and I mean, the regulators are here. And something that they hammered on in the last panel session was around how the regulations that we have today, we should have revised them 4 years ago. I mean, we are literally in a digital space, and yet we are being held down by regulation. Do you agree with this?
Yes and no. Yes, because let me start with no. So today, I must give credit to the regulators, particularly CBN, because as we speak, right, as we speak, there is the CBN Payment Vision 2025, right? Now, in that document, we have things that are futuristic, things that address the current happenings. A good example is machine learning, right? The regulator is already creating a platform where operators can leverage on machine learning, AI, right? Big data. As we speak, NIPS has developed a platform using data because NIPS is a central repository of all the payments, transactions happening, right? So with that data, they are able to, tell that if a MENA is, he does transaction worth 100 million every month. So if out of the blues, I'm not doing 500, 1 billion, that is a suspicious transaction, right? So another addition is the open banking. CBN in 2023 came up with the operational guideline for open banking. And I can tell you for free that if open banking is practiced today in Nigeria, it's going to, if you want a loan, you can just sit down there right now and you are getting the loan right within minutes because your data is available. Open banking simply means that if you are banking in GTB, right, a money point can have access to all your financial information in GTB, right? Of course, with your permission. And so with that data, and it's API driven, with that data, I'm able to profile you to say, Lillian is, she has a good credit score, right? And then I can give her the loan she's asking for. So a couple of, initiatives that CBN is driving today, right? One of the new things that you'll start seeing very soon is geofencing of those POSs that we talked about. So if I'm a POS operator today, and I get a POS from my bank that I'm going to use the POS in Oriental Hotel. If I leave Oriental Hotel to Eco Hotel, I'm not able to use that POS. And that will control things around fraud, right? Because we see a lot of fraud happening today, around, the use of POS. So that speaks to geofencing. A couple of things, they are endless, and they're happening already, right? So I give credit to the regulator for that. Now, speaking to, updating the regulation. Yes, there are some of those regulations that we actually need to update. Let me give you an example. There is something around, what's it called? Microfinance banks. That if you have a microfinance bank account, you are not able to process 1 million transaction, 1 million naira worth of transaction at a time. I think that is, events have overtaken that. So we actually need to, look at those kind of, regulation, because MoneyPoint is a microfinance bank, and we have HNIs, right, top Nigerians using MoneyPoint account. And so what you're now saying is that I'm not able to now transfer 10 million naira from my account. Of course, those kind of regulations, events have overtaken those, right? Of course, today in MoneyPoint, you can transfer more than 1 million. But a couple of things things are evolving in the payment space today, and I can say very vividly that in terms of those regulations, especially as it affects the fintechs, right? Maybe the regulator should actually look at that. And I can tell you for free that they're actually looking at those things, right? They're actually looking at those things. We should have a modality put in place to ensure that operators don't just stop at educating their customers about fraud, right? I think one of the speakers talked about that. We educate our customers about fraud. Don't give out your password. It doesn't stop there. That is not enough, right? MoneyPoint, for example, should I say this? Yes, I can. We go a step further, right? So before the guys even commit the fraud, we are aware. In the past 6 months or 7 months, we've had to do what we call takedowns of about 800 domains. So people abroad, not even in Nigeria, funny enough, Asian countries, right? They sit down and they mimic your website. They mimic your domain. And then they create those domains, right? Even in Google Play Store, right? In Play Store, you would have apps, called MoneyPoint, right? You have MoneyPoint app, and you want to open an account, you go there, you put your detail, you download that app, and you think that is MoneyPoint app. And guess what? Immediately you do that, your account is wiped off. So we are aware of these things, and so we don't allow it to happen. Before it happens, we've already captured it. And that's why you will not sit here and say, oh, my money has disappeared from Money Point. Because doing that is expensive, right? But that's the sacrifice we pay for our customers. And so fintechs need to actually replicate all this because that is the only way to go. Fraud is actually increasing. So you need to be a step ahead of these guys. You know, it's not just on domain. Even on Facebook, on Instagram, people are, impersonating financial institutions. You know, so we, sit and then look at these things and we take down, before once it's activated, we are taking it down. Once it's activated, we're taking it down. You know, let me even come down to, the telco bits. Today, a fraudster can impersonate the user ID of a bank, SMS user ID, right? Now, the telcos have a role to play because if I register Money Points with MTN, so I don't expect any other person to register Money Points, correct? Now, what happens now is the fraudsters now know that the telcos are watching this, so they go abroad. They use international routes. And today, that international route, the telco is not able to stop it. You know, so you can actually sit here, for example, and your bank will send you SMS alerts, and you think it's your bank, and then you put all the details. I'm talking about practical. Your bank name, correct? You know, it's happening. So what we do as Money Points, we are constantly watching out for these things, especially the international routes. Once it happens, we're taking it down. As it's happening, we're taking it down. You know, so CBN needs to put a framework around this, right, such that my responsibility doesn't just end in informing the customer or educating the customer. I need to go a step further, you know. And when this happens, you would have an ecosystem that is devolved. Before you hit any bank, you think twice because once you hit and you are successful, the money is trapped. And that's why I talked about the collaborative platform earlier, right? We have it today, but another drawback to that, because I know some of these things, you know, we go out there in the media. So it's important for us to highlight it. So another important thing on this platform right now is that CB is mandatory, right? But CBN says fraud. Once there is a fraud, please report it on that platform. But guess what? There is this aspect of, do I want to give out that information as a bank? Right? Do I want to report that, oh, I've been hit? You know, that is one consideration. A bank may say it is not fraud, it is system glitch. System glitch that resulted in money leaving that institution to other institutions, right? And the bank may be right that it is system glitch. So if we have a system glitch, but the platform says only fraud, then CBN should actually expand that to include system glitch so that the platform become robust enough to capture every form of fraud that is happening or any event that is going to lead to a loss. Because if a system glitch and money leaves that institution, right? Imagine a system glitch happening and Lillian's account was debited 100,000 to another account in another bank. It is system glitch, right? But the guy in UBA or the other bank has withdrawn the money. So let us expand that platform. Let's rework that platform, right, to ensure that it's not just capturing fraud per se, it's also capturing system glitch. And we'll have a better ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are out of time. We need to take questions from the audience. But there's something he said, quickly, just 30 seconds. There's something he said about telcos and you being able to impersonate a brand that's banks using the international routes. Is this something the NCC is looking into, and are there going to be regulations in that aspect very soon?
Yeah, actually it's something that is always ongoing, and the challenge is people, especially outside the country, try to send in calls and SMSs and other things through unapproved routes. And they do that in active collaboration with individuals in Nigeria, not the MNOs, but other individuals. And we call that sometimes call masking or call refiling and things like that. In fact, even yesterday, day before yesterday, I reported some calls that I've received from Saudi Arabia, but they came in through landline in Lagos, and I reported it to one of my colleagues, and he said, keep it coming. And that's what we try to encourage people to do, that if you receive a call or an SMS that comes from abroad, but it comes through a local number, you should report that. We have 622, and we have other channels that you can report to the NCC. And the essence is to safeguard against things like this SMS fraud now that is talking about. So if the calls come not through the normal channels, then it may either means some people are either doing SIM boxing or they are refiling or and things like that. And our enforcement teams go after those. Some are our licensees, some are individuals. So we go after that, and we have been very active in that. In fact, it has reduced significantly over the last 2-3 years. It went so high that when our enforcement team started working, now we have started noticing again coming through landlines. Before they will show you SIM numbers, local phone numbers, but it's international calls. So those are the efforts that we're making at the Commission. And then, of course, also we have also, like I mentioned earlier, our CSAT. We look at patterns. We look at where threats are coming in. And some of those threats, of course, we inform all the MNOs. And not only the MNOs, the ISPs and other licensees of the Commission. We normally do that almost on a daily basis. And we all have secure channels that we communicate with, and we tell them these are the things that we have noticed. Some are zero-day events, for instance. It becomes, if we see something happening in other countries, we immediately alert our licensees, and if it's not coming from our licensees, we also escalate to other SATs that we have around. So it's also part of the collaboration that we're doing. In fact, if you look at some of the challenges that we're having recently about the virtual asset service providers, it's something that we've worked collaboratively with all the law enforcement agencies, including the EFCC and the rest. So it's a continuing effort, and it's something that we keep doing, and we also encourage individuals to report numbers or local numbers that send in international calls.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ibuka. My question goes to the EFCC representative. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, you spoke about prevention. So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned two